Isn't it funny how something, so basic, something like a specific type of starch can have this huge global ripple effect? We're talking waxy maize starch today.
Yeah, sounds pretty niche, doesn't it? But the demand for it is actually, well, surprisingly big.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into. You shared this market report, and it's packed with details about the global waxy maize starch market.
Right. So our goal here is to pull out the really key stuff, the most interesting bits, so everyone can get a handle on what's driving this market without drowning in data.
And the scale is just wild. The report says the global market should hit USD 3,260 million in 2025.
Hmm.
But then get this, by 2033, they think it'll shoot up to USD 2,443.64 million. That's a growth rate of what, 7.6% a year?
Yeah, 7.60% CGR, compound annual growth rate, which basically means, it's growing by about that much on average each year, building on the previous year's total.
Right.
So starting from 2024 as the base, looking out to 2033,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that kind of sustained growth points to some serious underlying demand.
Absolutely. So, okay, those are the big numbers. But where is this growth actually happening? And who are the big players?
And why? Why is this specific starch suddenly so in demand?
Exactly. Those are the questions. We want to understand the dynamics.
Right. So you can see why this seemingly simple ingredient is having such a moment globally,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully do it in a way that's, engaging.
Okay, let's start with the big picture then. Global market overview, 2025,
Yeah.
USD 360 million. That's our starting point.
Yep. And like we said, climbing to over 2,400 million by 2033, that 7.6% average annual growth that really highlights the momentum analysts are seeing.
Okay, but this growth isn't the same everywhere, right? The report breaks it down by region.
Oh, definitely not uniform. There are some big differences. North America, for instance, holds the biggest piece of the pie right now.
The biggest. How much?
Over 40% of the total market. For 2025, they're looking at about USD 380.8 million. And forecast growth is 6.1% CAGR through 2033.
And within North America, is it mainly the US driving that?
Yeah, largely. The U.S. market alone is projected at just over $300 million for 2025. Growth there is a bit slower, 5.9%.
Okay.
Canada's smaller, around 45 million, but growing faster at 6.9%. And Mexico's about 34 or 35 million with a 6.6% growth rate.
So what's fueling it over there? Why North America specifically?
Well, the report really points to the rising demand for gluten-free options and also clean label ingredients.
Ah, the health trends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People are paying more attention to what's in their food. Waxy maize starch works well as a natural thickener, a stabilizer, plus its use in pharmaceutical soaps, too.
Right. Clean labels, natural ingredients.
Hmm.
That makes
It's
sense.
a big trend in developed markets. Puts pressure on manufacturers.
Yep.
They reformulate and boom, demand for ingredients like this goes up.
Okay. What about Europe? They're a big chunk too, right?
Yep, over 30% of the global market. Projected size for 2025 is around USD 326.4 million. Their growth is pegged at 6.4% CAGR.
And similar drivers there.
Pretty similar, yeah. Big push towards plant-based foods, non-GMO ingredients.
Yeah.
That's definitely influencing demand in Europe.
Any specific countries standing out in Europe?
Let's see. The UK is estimated at nearly 55 million for 2025, growing quite fast at 7.2%. Germany's bigger, almost 65 million, growing at 6.6%.
Okay.
France is smaller, around 30 million, 5.6% growth. And Russia is actually pretty significant too, over 50 million, though growing a bit slower at 5.4%. So, yeah, quite varied across Europe.
Interesting. So North America and Europe are key, driven by health and plant-based trends. But you mentioned faster growth elsewhere, Asia Pacific.
Ah, yes, APAC. That's where the really dynamic growth is projected.
Okay, tell me about that.
So APAC holds about 23% market share currently. Size-wise, that's around 500 million for 2025. But the growth rate, 9.1% CAGR through 2033, that's the highest anywhere.
Wow, 9.1%. Why so fast?
It's largely the booming industrial sector and especially the food processing industries over there. Think about processed food manufacturing expanding in places like China and India.
Right, more packaged goods demand.
Exactly. And rising incomes mean people can buy more of them.
Yeah.
So they need cost-effective ingredients like waxy maize starch for texture, shelf life.
Makes sense. Which countries are leading the charge in APAC?
China's the biggest player, projected at over 210 million in 2025, growing at 8.6%. But India's growth is really something.
Yeah.
Market size around 50 million, but the CAGR is projected at a whopping 11%.
11%. Okay, that's huge.
It really is. Japan's also significant, around 69 million, 7.6% growth. South Korea, about 60 million, 8.2% growth. Australia, 26 million, 8.4% growth. Even smaller markets like Singapore, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, they're all showing really strong growth rates, like 8, 9% or more.
So that explosive growth in India, is it just the food processing boom?
That's a huge part of it. Plus, growing demand for convenience foods and also, like elsewhere, more awareness of cleaner labels. That combination seems to be really driving things in India and across much of APAC.
Fascinating. Okay, what about the other regions? South America, Middle East, Africa, are they significant?
They're smaller shares, but still growing quite fast. South America is over 5% of the market, looking at maybe $51, $52 million in 2025 with an 8.6% CAGR.
And key countries there.
Brazil and Argentina stand out.
Hmm.
Brazil around 22 million, growing at 9.2%. Argentina, smaller, maybe 8, 9 million, but growing even faster at 9.5%. They're using it more in food and focusing on local maize production too.
Okay. And the Middle East?
Smaller still, around 2% share, about $54 million estimated for 2025, but growing fast too, 8.9% CAGR. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the main ones. Demand there is growing in food, yes, but also medicinal and industrial uses.
And Africa.
Africa's about 1% share globally, maybe $46 million in 2025, growing at 8.0%. South Africa is the biggest market there. And again, you see use across industrial food and even medicinal applications driving that growth.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Seeing how these different regional stories add up to that big global growth number. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The report also segmented the market, right? By type, nature, and user.
It did, yeah. Looking at type first, there are mainly two, native and modified.
Native, like the original stuff.
Pretty much. It's the starch processed more directly from the maize. That native category holds the biggest share right now. The food industry loves it because it helps with shelf life, quality, and it fits that clean label demand we keep mentioning.
Okay, but you said modified is growing faster.
That's right. Modified waxy maize starch.
Yeah.
Well, it's been altered slightly. Chemically, maybe enzymatically, or physically.
Tweaked a bit.
Exactly. Tweaked to perform better in certain conditions, makes it more stable, maybe gels better, works better for mixing things. So it's useful in a wider range of applications, especially industrial ones. Think paper, textiles.
Ah, so it's more versatile.
Yeah, that enhanced stability and functionality opens up more doors for it, particularly outside of food. That's why that segment is expanding more rapidly, even if native is bigger overall right now.
Got it. Native leads, but modified is catching up fast due to versatility. What about the nature segment? Conventional versus organic.
Okay, so conventional definitely holds the larger share. That's mostly down to, established supply chains, lower production costs. It's widely used everywhere, food, pharma, industrial.
But organic is growing, I assume?
Oh yeah, growing rapidly. That demand for clean, non-GMO, chemical-free products is definitely boosting organic waxy maize starch. You see it popping up more in organic foods, plant-based stuff, gluten-free items.
So why isn't it bigger then?
Well, the main hurdles are availability, getting enough organically grown maize, and the higher cost of producing it.
Right.
So growth is strong, but it's starting from a smaller base and has those constraints.
Right. Conventional dominates, but organic is one to watch. Okay, final segment. Where is it all used? The end users?
Well, no surprise here. The food industry is the biggest end user, by far.
Makes sense.
It's used for texture, stability, shelf life, in tons of stuff. Baked goods, candy, soup, sauces, dairy alternatives, even baby food.
It really is in everything, isn't it? Even if you don't notice it.
Pretty much. But the non-food applications are where we're seeing really interesting expansion.
Like what?
Adhesives, for one. They're using it to make more eco-friendly, biodegradable adhesives for paper and packaging.
Oh, that ties into the sustainability trend.
Exactly.
Ah.
Then in textiles, it's used for finishing fabric, sizing, makes them feel better, more durable. And pharmaceuticals, we mentioned it briefly, it's used as an excipient.
What?
An excipient. Basically an inactive ingredient that helps bind the active stuff in a tablet together or helps it dissolve properly in your body.
Huh. So definitely way beyond just thickening gravy.
Oh, yeah. Its versatility is key, which leads us nicely into the market dynamics. The report mentioned the drivers, restraints, trends.
Right. So what are the main things pushing this growth?
Well, number one is that expanding use in food and beverages, definitely. Then there's the rapid growth of the pharmaceutical industry needing ingredients like this, and ongoing R&D spending. Companies are always letting new ways to use it, making it better.
Okay. And the downsides? Any roadblocks?
The big one is price volatility for the raw material, the maize itself. Crop prices fluctuate. That can impact costs.
Sure.
And there's competition. Other starches out there, from potatoes, tapioca, whatever, might compete on price or function in certain uses.
Makes sense. And finally, the key trends. We hit clean labels and sustainability. Anything else major?
Those are huge, yeah.
Yeah.
The demand for natural, clean label stuff is massive. The report also specifically called out growing use in sports nutrition and nutraceuticals. Those markets are booming too, and waxy maize starch fits in well there.
Okay. Lots of interconnected forces. The last piece was the competitive landscape. Sounds active.
Very. The report says it's competitive. Companies are innovating, making deals, buying each other up.
M&A activity.
Yep. Alliances, acquisitions, basically trying to get a stronger position, offer more products, produce more efficiently to meet this rising demand.
Did the report give an example?
It did. Mentioned Tate & Lyle, a big ingredients company. Back in October 2020, they bought a company in Thailand called Chowdy Modified Starch.
Ah, to boost their starch options.
It's exactly to strengthen their starch solutions and get a better foothold in that fast-growing Asia-Pacific market we talked about. It's a good snapshot of the kind of strategic moves happening.
So pulling it all together,
Yeah.
this deep dive really shows the waxy maize starch market is, well, way bigger and more dynamic than you might think.
Absolutely. It's not some tiny niche. It's substantial. It's growing fast, projected to more than double by 2033.
Driven by everything from clean eating trends to pharma needs to biodegradable glue.
That's the key takeaway. It's this mix of evolving consumer tastes, industrial needs, pharma growth, all making this starch surprisingly valuable and versatile globally.
It really shows how these markets connect, doesn't it? Food trends, health, industry, all linked.
It really does. And maybe a final thought for our listeners. Thinking about this, what other, basic ingredients might be going through similar global shifts right now? Driven by trends we see every day, or maybe by tech advances we don't even know about yet. It makes you wonder what else is happening under the surface.
Definitely food for thought. Well, thanks for digging into this with us. It was genuinely more interesting than I expected.
My pleasure.
We really hope this overview gave everyone some valuable, maybe even surprising insights from the source material you shared.